Hey D-Team, hope you had a great Christmas, great New Year. I want to show you something that's really been bending my noodle for the last few months, and I'm hoping it's useful for you to think about as well. It's called the Six Gospels, and I went to a conference last year, and I heard this presentation from this group called the Bonhoeffer Project, and they argued that there are 6 different versions of the Gospel of Jesus Christ being preached in America today. And I was like, I don't think so. And so I sat and listened, and I've really been thinking about it a lot ever since. What they say is there's 6 gospels that are preached, and the gospel that you believe determines the disciple you make. So if you believe the wrong gospel, you get the wrong disciple. And I was like, that's an interesting idea. So this is what they say, all right? This isn't quite how they do it, but it's how it helps me. First of all, I'm going to draw a big old 5-pointed star. And you're like, Micah, I thought you said it was 6 different gospels. Just bear with me, all right? 5-pointed star. And this is what they say. They say the first gospel that gets preached in America is the forgiveness-only gospel. I know we're kind of... In fact, I'm just going to kill that right there. Gone. The forgiveness-only. The forgiveness-only gospel. And when you believe the forgiveness-only gospel, what do you tell people? You tell people, be forgiven. That's your message to people, right? I'm going to do like an equals sign here. Okay, I guess I can do that right there. Forgiveness only. Be forgiven. And what does that equal when you believe the forgiveness only gospel? Well, what it equals, a lot of times, is sanctified passivity. Right? What it equals is I got my ticket, I got my fire insurance, I'm out. I got what I need, I'm good. Right? Sanctified passivity. The idea, what happens is I believe that following Christ is optional. Now, don't miss this, right? Be forgiven is part of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So this isn't wrong, but it's incomplete, all right? It's not incorrect, it's just incomplete. Be forgiven. It's important, it's a big deal. But if all we're teaching of the gospel is be forgiven, if that's all we talk about, then we get sanctified passivity. We get people that are just believing a forgiveness-only gospel. All right? So the next thing they said, the next gospel that gets preached in America is what we're going to call the social gospel. All right? And the social gospel, so what's the social gospel say? It says, help the needy. Okay, we should help the needy, all right? That is something that Jesus talked about. It's not incorrect, it's just incomplete. Because if all your gospel is just help the needy, then all you're going to judge stuff on is like, is it helpful for the needy? And if so, great. And if not, then I don't care about it. And so what happens is truth, if you believe in a social-only gospel, truth is optional. Right? I don't really care what they believe as long as I got a good soup kitchen, it's like that. And what you get is you get accommodation to culture. I forget how to spell accommodation. I think that's wrong. Don't judge me for my spelling, all right? It's accommodation, isn't it? Yeah, all right. And so this is what you get when you believe a social-only gospel. All right, let's move on. Down here we're going to have the moral gospel, right? What's the moral gospel? It is, I said right, it is do what's right. Do what's right. Hey, what's the right thing to do? Do that. That's what the gospel is, right? Do what's right. But what does that produce in us if we really believe the moral-only gospel? The good news is you can do what's right. Then what that produces in us is theological swagger. I love that phrase, theological swagger. Hey, look how good I am at being right. I'm right all the time, right? And that produces theological swagger. It produces exclusivity. You're not as good at being right as we are. And it produces detachment. Right? These two are kind of in opposition in a lot of different ways. But here's the thing. Jesus did say, do what's right. So if you love me, follow my commands, right? This is not wrong. It's not incorrect. It's just incomplete, all right? The next one that they talk about is the prosperity gospel. The prosperity gospel. And you know about the prosperity gospel, right? You see preachers on TV. You just send in your money, God's going to bless your life, right? And really the whole idea of the prosperity gospel comes down to claim your rights. Claim your rights. Because you have rights. You're a child of God. God's made promises to you. You got to claim those things, right? And that's not actually wrong. There's a part of that that's actually true. Jesus does want to meet your needs. He does say that we have rights as the heirs of God, right? As the adopted children of God. We do have rights. But when this is the frame for the gospel, and that's all the frame is, then what do we get into? We get into entitlement. And what they call, and I think this is a good phrase, God management, right? I'm trying to manage God. So it's like, hey, God, if I do this thing, you're going to do this thing, right? I'm going to give an extra 1%, and that means you have to give me an extra, like we're horse trading with God. God management. All right. The last gospel that they talk about is what we're going to call the consumer gospel. All right. So the consumer gospel, and again, it's not incorrect. It's just incomplete. What's the consumer gospel say? What's the gospel of consumption say? It says, man, God exists to meet my needs, right? That's not wrong. All right. When I have needs, I need to trust that God's the one who's going to meet those, right? But if my understanding of the gospel gets squished down into that, then what do I get? I get, if the disciple I make is believing this, what are they? I get a self-indulgent impatience, right? I'm just going to say impatient. And the other phrase that they use is addicted to desire. They're addicted. It's like, man, this is what I want, so this must be what God wants to give me, right? That's the gospel of the consumer. So all of these, the forgiveness only, you can actually put only after all of these, right? I can even take that off if I want to, or put it on all of them. The forgiveness only gospel says, be forgiven. It doesn't say anything else. The social only gospel says, help the needy. The moral gospel says, do what's right. Prosperity gospel says, claim your rights, right? And the consumer gospel says that God's going to meet my needs. And all of those things have an aspect of truth in them, right? Satan's best lies are part truth, right? All of those are partly true, but they're not the whole truth, right? The whole truth is what I'm going to call the kingdom gospel. And the kingdom gospel says this. The gospel of the kingdom is Jesus says to you and he says to me, follow me. Follow me. Because that's Jesus' message to you. Jesus' message to you is not just be forgiven. It's not just help the needy. It's not just do what's right. It's not just claim your rights. It's not just that I'm going to meet your needs. All of those have a place. But what Jesus is actually saying to you, what the gospel really is the good news is Jesus says, follow me. That's the good news. I'm going to let you follow me. And what happens when we create a disciple whose key idea is follow me, right? Well, what we get is we get followers. I probably can't fit all this in this little space, but we get followers learning to trust in Jesus. Right? We get followers who are learning to trust in Jesus and who are learning to live life like him. And that's really what I want for all of us. I don't want us, and at different times in my life, I have believed maybe like more on this side, the forgiveness only, or I've been more on this moral side right over here. I've been more on this consumer side, and that's not unusual. One of these is probably going to be where you start with Jesus. But this right here is where we want to take people, all right? We don't just want to take people to a place where they think God's going to meet my needs, or, God's going to forgive me, although those things are true. What we want people to understand what God wants from me is for me to follow him. I need to follow Jesus. So I know this video is way longer than it should be. It's a complex idea to get across in a short amount of time. So I hope you have a great week, and I will look forward to talking with you next week. See you guys. Bye.